Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today is a very exciting and special video because today I am breaking down my top 10 favorite books of 2021. But not only will I be talking about my top 10 favorite books, I will also be talking about my top 10 favorite teas of 2021. So last year was a very tea heavy year for me. I really got into drinking more tea and trying different kinds of tea. And I also got a lot of tea themed gifts for Christmas. So it was a very tea heavy year and I really enjoyed getting to explore all these different types of teas last year. So I have 10 teas and 10 books I'm going to talk about today. The plan is I'm going to go from least favorite to most favorite, talk about each one, and you will get to find out my favorite book and my favorite tea of 2021. So without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, coming in 10th place, we have Moon Rising by Tui T. Sutherland. So I started the Wings of Fire series mid-year in 2020, and I read the first 5 books in 2020, but in 2021, I read basically the rest of the series. So there are 10 books in the main 2 arcs after arc 1. So arc 2 is 5 books, arc 3 is 5 books. And then I also read 2 Legends books as well as a Winglets book, which is like short stories within the world. So lots of Wings of Fire books, but this one was the first book in the second arc. So the first main arc book that I finished in the new year. And oh my goodness, I loved this book so much. I loved the first arc, but this book just solidified how much I love Wings of Fire, and it was an amazing start to the reading year, as well as a fantastic start to the rest of the series. So this one is about Moon, who is a mind-reading Nightwing dragon, and it's about her adventures as she starts to attend this school that's supposed to unify all the different tribes after a great war that they all had. And it's a fantastic setup to this arc. I loved Moon's voice. I loved the way she described things. I loved the representation of anxiety and all the worries that she has and how she deals with those anxieties and how her friends and her family support her throughout those times. It was just a beautiful, wonderful, fun read. So these are middle grade, but I don't really think that they're basic, and I don't think that the characters are flat at all. I think these characters are so rich and well developed. So this was my 10th favorite read of 2021. So my 10th favorite tea of the year was chai masala. So I had chai masala for the first time in November, I think. So this has a bunch of different spices in it, like cloves, cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, nutmeg, as well as black tea. So I basically just steep one of these packets and steam some milk up for myself and just make myself a chai latte. Chai masala is more of a new favorite since I didn't drink it until November, but I still really enjoyed having it in Florida and ever since. Also, my heater just kicked on, so if you hear any noise in the background, that's what that is. It is very cold in New York right now. It is like 14 degrees and I am freezing my butt off, so that is why the heater noise is aggressive right now. Moving right along, the number 9 spot is another Wings of Fire book, and I promise you that this whole list is not Wings of Fire. These are the only 2. Just hear me out because I just want to be honest with you guys about my favorite books and not try to make myself seem smarter or more intellectual or more put together than I am. These are just my favorite books of 2021, and even if they're middle grade, I'm going to be honest and talk about them. So that's my little disclaimer. Please don't judge me, but my 9th favorite book of 2021 was The Poison Jungle, which is book 13. This is the second to last book in the main series that I read in 2021, and oh my goodness, I loved reading from this character. So the main character in this book is Sundew, and she can speak to trees and hear trees and plants and communicate with them. So she's just a fascinating character overall, but she's also very grumpy and she's just so lovable because she's so crabby all the time. But my favorite part of this book was the fact that a little dragonette from another tribe just starts to cling onto her, and Sundu really doesn't know what to do with this small child. She's like, I never wanted to be around baby dragonettes, so what is happening? And that relationship is just so sweet. And something that I really like about Tui T. Sutherland's books is she does not shy away from representation of all different kinds. So in this book, there is representation of a lesbian relationship. Sundu is in a relationship with Willow, who is another female dragon. They have a very sweet, loving, and beautiful relationship, and it's just so nice to see that represented in a children's book in a way that doesn't other the characters at all. It just is normal. No one says anything about it. Nothing is weird about it at all. The characters in this book are just so well thought out and deliberate and wonderful. And I can't sing the praises of this book enough. So absolutely loved The Poison Jungle, and this was my 9th favorite read of 2021. So I don't have a physical packet of the other tea to share with you, but the number 9 tea on my list was 3 Mint by Pukka. So you're gonna see a lot of Pukka teas on this list because they're basically my favorite tea brand. I love Pukka. They have so many delicious, amazing flavors. If you saw any of my December vlogs, I got a Pukka advent calendar, so I had a tea for every day. So I will link those videos below so you can sort of see the flavors and what Pukka offers. Not sponsored by Pukka, I just am obsessed with them. But I love mint tea in all forms. I drink peppermint tea, I drink mint green tea, I drink all different kinds of mint tea. The 3 Mint is just a very rich, well-developed mint flavor. It's not super overpowering, but it's not super mild. It's right in the middle. And I just drank this one a lot, which is why I don't have any, because I have to order some. But 3 Mint was my number 9 pick for favorite tea of the year. The heater finally turned off, which is great. But my number 8 pick for favorite book of the year was Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enriquez. So I found this book on a list of books similar to Shirley Jackson, and I also had heard this talked about sort of all over the place. My friend Marina over on Instagram had recommended this and said it was amazing. This was blowing up on Bookstagram also, so I just figured I would give it a try, even though it sounded a little bit scary, and I really hadn't delved into a lot of like ghost stories or supernatural horror stories. I wasn't sure if I would like it because I really don't like supernatural horror in movies, but oh my goodness, I loved this book. I guess I found a niche of books that I actually did really enjoy. I do like supernatural stuff in short stories, but can we just talk about horror short stories for a second? Oh my goodness. So I read a couple of horror and supernatural themed short story collections in the past year, and I was so impressed by how much depth each story was able to have and how much scariness, but also well-developed characters and plot, etc., was able to be wrapped into a very small packaging. So I was very impressed with that like subgenre of literature. But this was by far my favorite of the horror short story collections that I read. So this one is set in Argentina and it follows a lot of different characters, but most of the plot surrounds Argentinian folklore and culture and mythology, etc. It's very dark, it's very spooky and weird and strange and a bunch of other descriptive words. It is basically about the culture of Argentina, the folklore and the traditions, and the horrors of the real world juxtaposed with the horrors of the supernatural world. So it is a incredibly written, very well translated book. I loved so many of these stories. As you can see from my ratings, I gave almost all of them 4 and 5 stars. But I absolutely loved this book, and if you like or are interested in supernatural horror, short story horror, and Jackson-esque horror, highly recommend. So my number 8 spot for teas goes to this one called Detox. It's a very small little packet, but I'll show you. This was not one of the ones on my Pukka tea advent calendar, but it was very similar to the first one that I tried, which was called Feel New. But Detox is aniseed, fennel, and cardamom, which is almost exactly the ingredients of Feel New. But Feel New is not available as its own tea, so I was not able to get a box of that, so I got the Detox one. And this is so mild and delicious, and I've been drinking it all the time. So even though this was a later in the year find, I've been drinking it so much that it had to make the number 8 spot. Like I said, I really enjoyed the mildness of the tea and the sweetness, and it's just so delicious and wonderful and calming, so yeah. So the number 7 spot for my favorite books of 2021 is Breasts and Eggs by Miko Kawakami. I don't think anyone is surprised about how much I love this book. I've talked about it a lot. So this book focuses on 2 sisters primarily. The first little section talks about one of the sisters and her daughter. The daughter is starting to become a woman, and she's going through all of these changes and hates her body and doesn't understand why her mother wants to get breast implants and is obsessed with looking perfect, if you will. So the first part is very angry and feminist and is full of rage, and it just talks about the expectations that are placed on female bodies to simultaneously create life but also look beautiful and perfect all of the time. And then the second part is about the other sister who has basically said that she never wants to have children, and at some point she realizes that maybe she does actually want to have children. So she starts researching all of these options because she doesn't want to get married or go in a traditional route. She doesn't even want to really sleep with a man. So she's looking into sperm donation, she's looking into all these things and the ethics of having a child as well. Is it right to have a child? Is it wrong to bring a human into the world and know that they will suffer? So there are so many different things discussed in this book, but overall, it's just commentary and discussion of the expectations that are placed on women to look a certain way, be a certain way, have children, etc. And it is a very powerful feminist book, and I absolutely adored it. Also, the physical book is just so gorgeous. The cover is gorgeous. I love the spine. It's just a very lovely book to hold and to look at. But this was also a Japanese translated book, and I absolutely adored it. I highly recommend. All right, taking the 7th place in my top teas of the year is Tulsi Clarity, which looks like this. This was one of the ones that I had on my advent calendar, and I forgot how much I loved Tulsi tea. Tulsi is supposed to be very invigorating and, like it says, clarifying, so clarity of the mind, etc. And it tastes delicious. I drink this a lot in sort of the midday range, so not my morning start to the day, but not my tea before bed. It's a great boost in the middle of the day. It's caffeine free, but there is sort of a clarifying feel to it. So I really like drinking this in the midday, and it's really delicious, so I highly recommend. And this is my number 7 tea of the year. All right, moving on to my number 6 spot, we have Faux by Ian Reid. So as I have mentioned countless times, I am an Ian Reid stan. I'm Thinking of Ending Things is one of my favorite books of all time. I just recently reread it and annotated it and absolutely adored it the second time. Probably liked it more than I did the first time, honestly. It just gets better every time you read it. So I read Faux in May for the first time, and it really wasn't what I was expecting necessarily. I went into this thinking that it was a very claustrophobic, domestic sort of thriller set in the country, and while it was that, I was not expecting it to be sci-fi. I was not expecting it to deal with space and AI and all of these crazy things. And I think that was the point. I think the juxtaposition was the point of the book, and I think it made it as wonderful as it was and as shocking and surprising, because I did not suspect the twist in this book at all. So yeah, this was an absolutely incredible, thrilling, twisty-turny book, and I loved it almost as much as I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Ending Things is still top tier. I don't think any of his books will ever beat that, but this was a very close second, and I found out that there is a movie coming out with Saoirse Ronan of this book, and my mind is exploding. I cannot wait for the movie to come out, so very exciting, and I absolutely loved this book. So my number 6 favorite tea was this tea called Zen by Tazo. So I have the tea packets that I started making hot tea with in November, but the jugs of iced Zen Tazo tea I have been drinking all year. So this was a favorite summer item. I don't have a jug to show you, but it's this type of tea. And it is just the iced, I think slightly sweetened version of this tea, which is a a green tea with lemongrass and spearmint. Oh my gosh, it's so delicious iced. I might have to just use these packets to make my own batch of iced because it's just not the same hot, honestly. But I drank so much of that kind of iced tea all summer, and it was just a favorite when I got home from a long day to just pour myself a glass of it and enjoy. So that is my number 6 favorite tea of the year. All right, moving along to my 5th favorite book of 2021. I think people will be very surprised by the fact that this book is not a little bit higher on the list, but the more I thought about it, the less that I felt like this was my favorite book of the year. But it is Clara and the Sun by Kazu Ishiguro. So this was my first Ishiguro read, and after I read this, I read 2 other books by him. I read Never Let Me Go, as well as the short story Come Rain or Come Shine. The book itself was so fantastic. I loved the unique perspective on AI and hearing from an AI's point of view, seeing how childish Clara seemed and how she grew with the child that she was taking care of. I loved how introspective the book was. I loved how slow-paced and meandering it was. I just thought that it was beautifully written, and Clara's perspective was exquisite. I loved how she idolized the sun and the commentary on religion and worship of God. It was just such a fascinating, wonderful book. And I know that I am not the first one to say this because this book is so beloved, as are many of Ishiguro's books. But this was just a wonderful reading experience, and I loved it so much initially. But as I thought about it, I still loved it, but I didn't think that it deserved my number 1 spot, because even though it is a beautiful book objectively, it just didn't hit home with me as deeply as some of the other books that I rated a little bit higher on this list. Obviously, all of these are 5-star reads. I didn't mention that, but these are all 5-star reads, but there are some that just touched me more deeply and that I connected to more deeply. So this did not make it to the number 1 spot as I kind of thought it would, but it's still number 5 and an incredible, incredible book. All right, my number 5 tea of the year is a tried and true for me. This is Bedtime by Yogi. Ooh, look at that. I'm really a YouTuber now. This is a favorite. It's been a favorite for a very long time. I drank this for many years before 2021, but I just drank this a lot, and it is such a standby favorite that I wanted to put it like smack in the middle of the list because it's not revolutionary. It's not like a new favorite thing that I am obsessed with, but it is a standby that I drink constantly. And this one is flavored with licorice, chamomile, spearmint, skullcap leaf, cardamom, cinnamon, orange, passion flower, rose hip, valerian root extract, lavender, and stevia leaf, which is a lot of things, but it's very calming, it's very soothing, it's great before bed, and it is a favorite. So moving along to my number 4 favorite book of 2021, this one might surprise some people because this is not one that I have really talked about much. I read it in December, I believe. I read it in a day, so I talk about it briefly in one of my December vlogs, but it is just such an incredible book, and I loved it so much, and I read it literally in a day. It was that gripping and exciting. And the book in question is The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Filya. I just hit myself in the face. But this is a collection that I heard about from Noelle Gallagher. She absolutely loved this collection. So basically, this is a collection of stories, I think almost exclusively with female main characters, but it's about the intersection between being Black, a woman, and dealing with religion. So how to find your identity within faith, within religion. It's about the hypocrisy of the church at times. It's about church and family, religion and family, religion in relationships. There's so many different topics covered, but it is a very raw portrayal of these characters' lives and how they interact with religion and faith. So this is a topic that I am very passionate about and that I love reading about and love learning more about. So obviously I don't have the experience of the component of being Black and how that interacts with religion and faith, but I do have experience with womanhood and how that interacts with religion and faith and how women are expected to be and live within the context of a Christian religion. So this was a very poignant book for me, and I connected to it deeply and could not take my eyes off of it for the entire day that I read it. So this makes the number 4 spot, and if you're interested in those topics, I highly, highly recommend Okay, moving right along, we have my number 4 favorite tea of 2021, and it is Peppermint and Lavender. So I do have this package. I have been drinking this one. This is a loose tea that I've been drinking hot. But in the summer, I also just made sun tea with dried lavender and fresh mint, and I just stuck those in a big thing of water, left it out in the sun for a few hours, and it's a very mild tea, but it was so delicious iced. So with peppermint and lavender tea, obviously you can buy it already mixed like this, or you can just make it yourself because it's very easy. It's just 2 ingredients. But between this one that I've been drinking hot and then when I made my sun tea all summer, I drank so much peppermint and lavender tea and it became very much a favorite, especially for the summer. So that is my number 4 favorite tea of the year. All right, moving along to my number 3 favorite book of 2021. It is All's Well by Mona Awad. So I read Bunny in the earlier part of the year, I think April or May, and I really liked it, but it was just really weird and very kind of gory at parts. And even though I wasn't like super scared by it, it just was a little bit too weird to give a 5 stars. So I gave it 4 stars. But I found out that this book was coming out this year, and this one is basically about a woman who has severe chronic pain after an injury, and she's trying to teach theater at a college. So on the surface, it is about her sort of being unhinged and trying to teach this play that no one wants to do. She's trying to make her students do All's Well That Ends Well, which was the play that she got injured doing. So she's trying to make her students do this play. They don't want to do it. They want to do Macbeth. So that's the general plot. But looking a little bit deeper, I think it's really about how the main character feels like living with chronic pain is a form of acting. So her past is obviously steeped in theater, and her present is also sort of steeped in theater because she's teaching it, but she's also doing her best to pretend and act like a healthy person. So it kind of deals with how stigmatized chronic pain is and how little people are willing to deal with someone's chronic pain. They get so sick of it, they don't want to deal with it anymore, and you are left sort of needing to pretend that you're okay so as not to burden people. So that's what I got from the book. It is a very weird, twisty, thrillery, unreliable narrator situation. So even though this has been considered a horror and thriller, which I understand, I personally connected with it so deeply because of the representation of chronic pain. I have sort of a nebulous, undiagnosed chronic pain situation that I've been living with for many years, and I am on the journey to try to figure out what is going on with my body, but it is a very challenging experience to know that you don't have a label for something that affects you so much and you can't explain it to people in a way that they'll understand. So it does become very frustrating to try to continue to live your life as if you are fine and try not to feel as if you are burdensome to people. So the way that she explained her pain and the way that she described the feeling of being a burden to people and trying to act as if she was okay was so deeply moving to me. So it wasn't just that this was a fun, weird, twisty thriller, it also just hit me very close to home. So this was an amazing, incredible, wonderful book, and if any of those themes sound interesting to you, I highly recommend you pick this up. All right, my pick for the number 3 favorite tea of 2021 is this one, which I don't think anyone has ever heard of, and it is Japanese Kucha Twig Tea. This is what the package looks like. So if you have heard of this, please let me know, because I barely see this anywhere. But this is a tea that my best friend Bex and her mom drink a lot and recommended to me, and I always drink tea when I go over to their house, so I wanted to try a new one, and I tried this one in 2021, and oh my goodness, I fell in love. So it's kind of bitter and it's a little bit coffee-ish, reminiscent of coffee in a way, but it's sort of a deep, rich taste. And like I said, it's a little bit bitter, which balances the richness. It's just a very interesting flavor, and it's not something that I can even really describe easily because it's not like any tea I've ever had. When you steep it, it gets very dark very quickly. So like I said, it has that coffee-ish sort of feel to it. But oh my goodness, I drank this so much in 2021. So my number 3 pick. All right, let's move on to my number 2 favorite book of 2021. So I will say that choosing my top favorite out of the 2 that I'm going to talk about next was almost impossible. I really had to think back to my experience reading both and determine what my favorite was versus my second favorite. It was very challenging, but I think this is the right order. So my second favorite book of 2021 is Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo. So this was a book that I picked up for the first time in early November. I had never seen it before, but I found it out in a bookshop. Actually, my best friend Bex found it in a bookshop, picked it up and said, "You're gonna like this." I read the back and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna buy this. So this book follows a couple and they are unable to get pregnant. So the husband's mother basically says that if they can't get pregnant, she is going to have a new wife come into their house and try to have a child with the husband. So that's the basic premise of this book, and the back does not talk very much about the rest of what happens in this book. It basically just talks about this new wife and the infertility issues and the issues with their marriage. But oh my God, that is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this book. There is so much plot in this book. It's so fast moving, so much happens, and I did not expect to be as emotional over this book as I was. I cried on an airplane over this book. I am not kidding. Something happened in this book, and I won't spoil it, but something happened that hurt me so deeply and made me so sad and upset. So I will say that this might be a little bit hard for some people to read, so I would look up content warnings if that's something that you're worried about. But this was so deeply moving and touching, and somehow I connected to these characters so intensely. I also forgot to mention, this is set in Nigeria, and Nigerian culture and the issues within Nigeria at the time this is set is a huge part of the book, and basically is the whole driving force behind everything that happens. Because in America, infertility is dealt with in a very different way than it is in Nigeria, so none of the things that happen in this book would probably have happened if they were in the US, so that is a huge part of the book. And I really don't want to understate that. So this book was just absolutely incredible. I did not expect it to be my second favorite book of the year, honestly. I picked it up thinking, yeah, that sounds up my alley. I'll probably get to it eventually. Picked it up immediately and just fell absolutely in love with the writing style, the characters, the plot, everything. It was just perfect. I have no complaints. I have no things I want to change about it. It's just perfect. So this was the most surprising book of the year, just considering that I'd never heard about it before, picked it up, and it became my second favorite book of the year. So what a win. So before I talk about my two favorite teas of the year, I just wanted to show you a few tea related things that I recently got. So my boyfriend got me this wonderful tea chest. It just looks like this, and you open it up, so that's what it looks like. So this has been a wonderful tea storage solution, and it's just so pretty, and I keep it in my room, and I love it. And the other tea thing that I got is this adorable tea kettle. I am obsessed with it. It is the cutest, most beautiful kettle. It's like a robin's egg blue with this beautiful gold on it, and the little lid lifts off and it has this little basket inside, so you put loose tea in here, fill this up with water, plop it in, let it steep. And it's amazing. My mom and dad got this for me and I love it so much. So I wanted to mention the tea kettle because my two favorite teas of the year are loose teas. So the second favorite is sort of more general, but this is just the one that I have to show. My second favorite tea of the year is Earl Grey. And I know that is the most basic thing to say. It's really not that interesting, but I had never tried Earl Grey before this year, and I had never had a London Fog. And oh my goodness, did that become an instant favorite and something that I now order at like all the cafes. But the one I have to show is this one. This is from the Tea Spot, and it's called Lady Lavender, which is a Earl Grey with lavender, orange, bergamot, and vanilla. So I've been using this in my little tea kettle to make London Fogs, and it is life-changing. I love it so much. I've been drinking so much black tea because of London Fogs, so I know that everyone already knows about that, and I'm really late to the party, but that was my second favorite tea of the year. All right, let's talk about my top tea of the year. So this was a tea that I found for the first time when I went to my old college town. They recently had a tea shop open up, and I hadn't been back to that town since March of 2020 when everything shut down. I never stepped foot back in my college after that, and this was the first time I'd been back in the town since then. So I went to the tea shop and I got almond oolong tea. So this is just a little mason jar that I have of loose tea, but I had never tried oolong tea before. And when I went there, I got a tea latte, which is basically a London Fog with whatever tea you choose. And I got an almond oolong tea latte with pistachio milk, and Chef's kiss. It was amazing. So I went back and I got a whole thing of almond oolong tea so I can make my own lattes, and it is so delicious and sweet and wonderful and almondy and amazing, and that's been my favorite, basically my favorite drink of the entire year. I've been drinking so much of it. So a lot of these teas were teas that I tried at the end of the year or towards the end of the year, but they became instant favorites. So I'll probably continue to drink them for a very long time, but this was my favorite tea of 2021. And finally, let us talk about my number one favorite book of 2021. I don't think that anyone will be super surprised about this, but it is yet another translated book, and it is Magma by Thora Hjörleifsdóttir. So this is an Icelandic translated book. It follows a character named Lilia who lives in Reykjavik, and it's basically just about her experience in an abusive relationship. So I will warn you that this book is very intense, very sad, and depressing at times, and I would recommend looking up content warnings because there are some things in here that I think could be triggering to some people, so I would look that up. But for me, this was a cathartic experience. This was such a moving, touching book. And it was very upsetting to me, though I felt that I could handle it. It wasn't too much for me, but it really did deeply affect me. This is a very realistic portrayal of an abusive relationship, especially when it comes to verbal and emotional control, manipulation, abuse, all of those things. Through her unnamed boyfriend, we get a lot of commentary on toxic masculinity and how men control women. But to me, what is the smartest thing about this book is that Lilia is not a likable character. She is very unlikable. She is not a saint, she is not perfect, and to me that provides commentary on how we expect women who are in abusive relationships to be saints. We want to see them as these perfect, wonderful people who are blameless, who are pure, and who are deserving of everything good. But we don't think about the fact that women who are not pure and perfect in every way also get abused, and they are also worthy of a positive, wonderful relationship. They do not deserve the kind of relationship that Lilia has. And she's also very unlikable in that she does not see the relationship for what it is. And to me, that is so important because that is such a huge piece of commentary on how, from the outside, it is so much easier to see that a person is being abused, but when they are currently in the situation, it is so hard to see abuse for what it is, especially when it comes to emotional, verbal, psychological abuse. Those things are not easy to pinpoint when you were in the situation. So throughout reading this book, I was so frustrated with her. I hated the fact that she could not identify what was happening and fix it. But that really made me think about my experiences and made me think about the fact that I was judging her for something that she couldn't recognize because she is so deeply entrenched in her abuse. So it was a very heavy-hitting read. There are so many layers to this book. It is a very short book because each page is like a little vignette, and the backs of the pages, a lot of the backs don't have anything on them. So it's a very quick read, and plot-wise, there's not a lot. There isn't a lot of like substance in terms of what's happening in the story, but the commentary that's provided, the way in which this author writes about the topic is so intense, beautiful, poignant, perfect. Every good word I could possibly throw at you is this book. So this is, without a shadow of a doubt, my number one favorite book of 2021. I connected to it so deeply. It made me upset, it made me hurt, it made me think, and it stuck with me. So those were my top 10 favorite teas and my top 10 favorite books of 2021. So I do want to mention one thing before I go. As of today, I have hit 500 subscribers on this channel, which is so exciting and wonderful, and I am so incredibly grateful that you made 2021 such an excellent year for this channel. Thank you so much for supporting me throughout 2021. What a wonderful New Year's gift to reach 500 subscribers. I am so excited and looking forward to providing you with even more exciting content. So to say thank you, I wanted to give away a few books. So I wanted to wait until the end of this video to talk about the giveaway because I'm giving away a copy of my 2 favorite books of 2021. So I will be giving away 1 copy each of Magma and Stay With Me, my 2 favorite books of 2021. This giveaway is only for people in the US, so I am sorry if you're not located in the US, but if you are based in the US, please leave a comment with your favorite book of the year and which of these books you are interested in receiving. So you have until January 20th to enter into this giveaway. So as I mentioned, all of the information about the giveaway will also be available on my Instagram at the same time that I post this video. So if you want to go over to Instagram and check it out, feel free. Please let me know what your favorite books of 2021 were. I would love to discuss them with you. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.